With Your Good Tears is I, Tristan, your pal and mentor, obviously, coming to you with the Everything is Fine, Everything is Ruined podcast. With me, as always, is Hassan. Hassan.
That's me.
Yes, that's you. What are we doing here today? Because, like, I'm getting a sense of deja vu a little bit. Kind of, with this one.
Deja vu of what? Like what past experience are you feeling?
As if we've had this conversation multiple times in the past, about this specific subject that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, no, that's because we probably have on a lot of episodes. But I wanted a specific episode to tackle this because today, Tristan, I want to talk about the ways in which, and I'm mostly dubbing it, the modern internet and social media has changed the face of fandoms and how we interact with the things we like.
Well, my title card doesn't represent that per se, but I think I got the point across with fandoms are dumb in big bold letters.
Yeah, I mean, look, they are. But no, what I specifically want to address is that, and something that I think it's not just us that have talked about. I've heard other podcasts, and I've seen other discussions.
This discussion a lot actually in other podcasts. You're right. In other shows, it's just like the ruination of certain things that the internet brings about.
And there's good and bad to it. I think mostly
and shitification
on the bad. But in particular, the thing that I kind of really want to hone in on, and kind of the main thrust of something that I've noticed a lot of recently is that with the, and it's mostly media that we interact with where I've seen this, but a lot of media and the way that people come to it now is they come at it with this idea that the information that should be available to them in regard to it and that how they interact with it isn't just I watched the thing and I liked the thing. It's I watched the thing and I should be able to now find out every single possible detail about it. And I think the best example of this, and it's not where I would entirely put the blame by any means, but a very good example of it is the way that wikis have very clearly had an impact on how people get their information and consume media and learn about something that they like.
So it wasn't entirely off base. Fandoms are dumb.
Yeah.
I was on the site fandom.com. Anyway, go on.
Well, it's that thing of, and I will defend them by saying, I don't think the wikis themselves are inherently wrong or evil. I think you could have a lot of the same conversation around those as you have with something like a Metacritic, where people are like, the way that people care about scores, it's all Metacritic's fault.
It's not their fault.
Metacritic didn't do anything. It's other people coming to that and wanting to use it in that way.
We all know to blame is IGN. Let's just leave it at that.
I think you mean Woke Taku.
Oh, fucking Woke Taku. Or GameStop. Wow.
GameStop definitely sucks. But the thing about wikis is, and they've been around for longer than I would say this trend has been a problem. I would say this trend, I couldn't necessarily point a year specifically. I would say I probably only started to notice it somewheres around 2018, 2019 is when I noticed it. I'm sure there were instances of this happening before this. And wikis have, I mean, like Wikipedia, for example, that's been around since at least the mid 2000s, a decade before
I do appreciate Wikipedia and Bulbapedia as like their own separate wikis, but I know that it's funny you bring this up. We're in 2018, 2019, so there was a point where Fandom, the specific wiki site, was actually created in part by fans for a lot of different reasons. And it was run exactly as you would Wikipedia. If you go into a fandom these days, this is a bit of a tangent, but you know what, bear with me. If you go into a fandom these days, there's a problem because some of this information is not correct. They don't use AI per se, but they don't have the same rules as Wikipedia does. Nobody's fact-checking anything.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation we could have.
And there's a whole thing about that where I think they might start using AI to fill in some of these wikis to kind of like make the information more relevant.
I don't know how well that would work.
It still ad space, so
they kind of, you know, AI needs to pull its information from human users elsewhere, so that'd probably be a little bit difficult for them.
Pretty much.
Who knows? But
or just make it up.
I think the thing is with wikis is that it has allowed people to get pieces of information that wouldn't necessarily be as easy or as necessarily obvious to collate. So I'm talking about things like, let's say you liked, I'm trying Shogun, right? A TV show people like a lot right now.
Yeah, sure.
Used to be not that long ago that even if you liked a show, the only information you would really get about that show was, and not even just show, but like TV, movie, book, video game, whatever it is. But the only information you would typically get from it and about the characters and all that would be what was directly in the show. Whereas today, you could go to, you search a character name or you go to the wiki and you search the character and it's going to be like, oh, hey, this character, here's their backstory. It's not in the show, but this, the actor mentioned it in this interview, or, oh, it's in this additional bit of text that was cut out that the showrunner talked about. And that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
But it's entirely irrelevant to it. And so I think it's created these situations where I just noticed that people watch a thing and then they go to the wiki to just learn these facts about it. And they're not taking those facts and then, using it to say...
Not really.
Enhance their understanding of the show, to better flesh out the, oh, yeah, this adds additional context to the frosty relationship between these characters, or, oh, okay, knowing that this character had, these parental issues, that's why they react this way in the scene. They're just learning these facts because it feels like that's just what's expected of, fandoms these days, is just, oh, no, you have to go off and learn a bunch of stuff. And I do think there are good parts to that and bad parts, and there are situations where that is helpful, right? If you are somebody who, you want to get into comics, I mean, expecting somebody to go back and read however many decades of DC comics to fully understand and be aware of these things, or expecting, hey, here's this issue of Superman and Blue Beetle shows up. well, expecting that person to then go off and buy multiple issues of Blue Beetle so they can understand who Blue Beetle is,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. So
It is.
allowing them to, hey, I'm just going to go on this wiki and then I can read about this character and have this context.
Yeah.
It's great. So I'm not sitting here and saying wikis are always bad. They're the worst. People shouldn't look up facts on stuff. They should just absorb the thing and then never need to know any additional information. Absolutely not. But
That's right. Fuck them.
it is something that I notice that it has led to this trend where people treat these they treat the properties that they interact with in ways that is just insane in a lot of ways. Like I'm trying to pull it up here. I wish I hadn't closed that tab. There was somebody tweeted out this screen capture of, and it was somebody complaining about the recent Studio Ghibli movie, The Boy and the Heron.
Okay.
And basically they start and they're like, oh, what I like about The Boy and the Heron, I disliked about Spirited Away too. And they're saying it's fine to be unrealistic, and this is where I'm going to quote it. However, you have to explain all the mechanics of the world with internal consistencies for the audience to be invested in the story. The lore, power, magic systems, all the characters and how they scale against each other, all the different animal kingdoms, how they interact, all the mechanics, limits, rules.
They use the term. They use the term I hate the most.
Power scale?
Magic system.
Oh, yeah. No,
so
we're going to get into that next, because it's not just, I think, wikis that are the problem. I think, they are an element of it. But I think another factor to this is, and just quickly before we get to, I will say, the idea of people getting these facts, all this stuff, that's not new. Star Wars, Star Trek, people were doing that ages ago. And we'll jump to it in a bit, but things have kind of changed. And I think that quote is another example of where, people have had systems where you attribute numbers and you build a magic system since the first D&D, right? But I think
that's
another. I'm talking in a wider scale, though.
Sure.
And one thing I've noticed is that I think a lot of media has started to attribute, actual rules and numbers to things. And that's,
True,
obviously
yep.
You've got, tabletop games, but then you also have video games have done it. And I think like manga and anime in particular have also harmed that, where, hey, Dragon Ball had, the scouters, and the numbers, and they eventually dropped that because Toriyama kind of realized, hey, this is just going to get to nonsense levels. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
A lot of manga and anime will have either, like a 5-point scale system, or I forget what you call them, but, the where you kind of connect the dots, like the pentagram with the it's sort of like a graph, but instead of it being bars, they're all connected. And a lot of those will have that, where, they give you the power rankings of the characters. And
the star chart kind of thing. I know what you meant, yes.
Yeah.
Strength, power, speed, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the fact that multiple forms of media that a person interacts with have started to give this idea of, you can officially quantify these elements. You can officially sit here and say, Superman has, 5 power, 3 intelligence, so when you put him up against Batman, who's got 5 intelligence but only 2 strength, well, he's gonna win. And I think it's just created this problem where you get all of this information, and it creates this idea to people that, you can create these, these fictional worlds and characters, that even though they're fictional, well, you can still have, real means by which to measure things and actually build out and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, yeah, your magic system has to have rules to it. No, it really doesn't. It's okay, guys. We can let that slide.
Yeah. The one, okay, so you brought up the topic of The Boy and the Heron and Ghibli's. So here's the thing with Studio Ghibli. There is no magic system. Coming from a authorial world where I have learned a lot about writing fantasy specifically, there are typically two kinds, and I'm sure the audience here, they've probably heard this before on many YouTube videos. Stop making these videos. About how a magic system works. And there's soft magic and hard magic systems. Soft magic is more like your Lord of the Rings, where magic just kind of happens, or a Studio Ghibli, where magic just kind of happens. And then the thing is, though, those ones are like, oh, it's, if you want that, that's nice and all. But a hard magic system with rules and like these tangible aspects to it, that's what the audience truly wants, because you can't have soft magic. Yeah, people really decry the soft magic. Here's the thing, though. When you say soft magic, what you're actually referring to is whimsy, like fun. Not necessarily. There's nothing not fun about hard magic, but things that just kind of happen because magic happens. So when that's presented to an audience, they tend to either accept that as just kind of like, yep, magic is just powerful and all good. We got a Gandalf, we got a Merlin, whatever, who cares? Or they go like, okay, here's the magic system, and these are how the wizards work, and they do these things, and they have to do this specific gesture in this specific way, using these specific materials to do this specific action, and this creates this kind of an effect. Okay, sure. That's the stuff that a lot of people get really into, especially if they come from a video game world or a D&D or Magic the Gathering world, because now you have a tangible thing you could just make a card game about, basically. And you go like, if I had the components, I could do this kind of feeling. However, what that does do is it makes everybody only want that stuff. And there are a lot of talks, a lot of, like I said, a lot of YouTube videos that are like, hey, it's okay if you like soft, it's fine. But the hard magic systems, that's the way to go, because that's the one that sells really well. I would argue that hard magic systems they tend to not actually sell as well as people think, because not everybody, the majority of people who are reading fantasy don't care how your magic works. It just, as long as it does. There's a reason why Lord of the Rings is the most popular fantasy book series of all time. And it's not because they sit there and explain the magic. Magic just kind of happens, and you don't need to understand it. You just know, okay, Gandalf tapped into some hidden power that he has, and now he's brought light down from the mountains, and now that he's summoned in the entire armies of Gondor, all this stuff. Yeah, that's just how it works. You don't need to know. It just does. Because
I need to know, because it needs to be on the wiki so I can read about it.
But it doesn't have...
I mean, slight correction, Tristan. You mean the second most popular after Drizzt Do'Urden.
No. So, yeah, Drizzt books are...
They're the number one.
I don't know if they sell Drizzt very much anymore.
Oh,
they definitely still do Forgotten Realms.
There's no way anybody's still reading Drizzt stuff, right?
Oh, you be surprised. Everybody's reading something.
That's fair.
Yeah. So the thing when Gandalf, summons the light and the armies of Gondor, these are books that are not really meant to be about magic systems.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, The Lord of the Rings, where, like, in some ways, you can blame J.R.R. Tolkien for some of the stuff we see around, like, he created his own language system, and now everybody just expects that's how you do it. Is like, well, if you're going to create a fake language, it has to work like an actual language. It's like, it really doesn't, guys. It's okay. But it's funny how, he did that, but then on the magic side, he's like, well, of course I'm not going to sit here and actually figure out how magic works. It's magic, dumbasses. It's not real. You can't create a magic system that actually works.
Exactly. You can kind of posit that this might work this way in the world because of these reasons. There's a reason why, like, Full Metal Alchemist... Actually, Full Metal Alchemist is a great example because what people have strayed towards these days is more the hard-soft system, which basically has, like, a specific hard system that people can get really into, but the real powerful shit is this soft magic stuff, where you can basically like tap into this this forbidden knowledge, this immense power, and now you have the Gandalf stuff alongside the like Full Metal Alchemist alchemy stuff, which is a magic system. So yeah, that's what people are tending towards these days because like they know that the soft hard like that does sell because you still want that whimsy. You still want a thing to be like, hey, at some point my character is going to burst forth and now they can just, well, I guess this is the example, they can call forth the wind and basically control wind itself. The name of the wind. That's the book. And basically, when you do this, it sells people kind of on this hard-soft mechanic. But there's no wiki you can go to for the soft stuff. That's where I'm going with that.
You can't go to the Lord of the Rings wiki and try and, hey, it's not like a Naruto or a Witch Hat Atelier or a Harry Potter where it's like, oh yeah, you can, if you just go there and you just learn these words or hand symbols or symbols that you can draw, you too could learn the magic, right? Like the Lord of the Rings doesn't have that. Yeah,
exactly. The thing about a hard magic system is that it does give fans a thing they can do as fans in like a cosplay scenario or just, like a fun thing together. Naruto's a good example because like you got the hand jive, you do this or you do that or like, the different symbols. And then basically you summon ninja magic. Like, and that's a thing that as fans...
You can fight raptors.
Sure, yeah. But as fans, it means you can actually do that with each other and that's kind of fun and dumb. And then basically you have the other side of it, which is like, when... Nowadays, if a hard magic system is introduced... It typically means that whoever is writing this or creating the property or whatever is probably trying to sell you on another product coming from this property. Probably a card game of some sort, maybe a mobile app thing.
I mean, not always, right? Like,
not always.
Atelier is definitely not trying to sell you that.
I wouldn't say they have a particularly hard system, though, which Atelier doesn't. Well, I guess they do actually. Yeah, which I tell you they do. You're right.
All the symbols and the circles and
the
clips.
Yeah, but that one kind of works because like the idea is that you're supposed to keep it secret anyway, so you don't really. Yeah, and it's also supposed to be like very precise. It's about drawing. Like you can't really turn drawing into a game per se. I mean, you can Pictionary.
Maybe you can't.
But like not that precise. So stuff like that. So. If you have these systems, if you have stuff that is supposed to be whimsical and fun and bombastic in a way and really powerful, but in doing so that makes it, overreaching and not really graspable by the average person, well, you can't write a fandom wiki about that, which means that like your fans might not stick around. So, even in stuff where you have more of a soft magic system, chances are you probably want to massage that into a harder system. That way it's like, your fans are like, oh, well, what if I did this cool thing? What if I was this kind of a character? Because it gets them thinking and gets them more engaged in the world. So, yeah. But the problem is... because that's the thing that everybody wants to do. Now most fantasy properties are too afraid to even have any sort of soft systems at all. They are still out there. There are books that exist that have soft magic systems. But I tend to find the ones that do better are hard magic system books and comics and that kind of stuff. And it seems to be because, like, if you have a wiki that says you can do this stuff and here's how to do it, you buy more into the world, and it's sad.
Now this gets to kind of the next part of what I want to talk about, which is that
go on. Hijacked long enough.
I think one of the things that has also kind of impacted some of this is that it's not that long ago. I mean, we're probably talking somewhere around 2010 and earlier. If we're specifically talking about the internet, where you could be a fan of a thing, you could watch it. So let's take, and I'm thinking like 2010, something that would be big, like The Walking Dead. Like Lost, right? Lost.
Sure.
That was a big show. A lot of people talk about it. Like talk to other people about it. But if you really liked Lost and you just went on the internet and you Googled Lost, the top results were not going to be these kind of wikis, right? If you wanted to go and actually engage in conversation with other people, or you wanted to go
lost heads,
or I shouldn't even say if you wanted to, but in order to go and speak to other people, or in order to go and learn about this, the internet was a lot more fragmented then, which meant that, you could, it really wouldn't have been that difficult to go and find, a forum or a fan site dedicated to Lost where you could talk to other people. A Facebook group would have existed, right?
Yeah.
But they were fragmented. There wasn't the singular or a handful like there are today where, hey, if you're something a little bit smaller, like, say, a Witch Hat Atelier, chances are there's really only kind of, one wiki, hey, here's the, like, main Discord server or main Reddit group, that kind of thing. Here's, the main Facebook group, if those still happen.
I don't know.
Whereas before, you would have had these things existing in more fragmented space. So something like Lost, you probably would have had multiple different sites. And some of them probably would have had certain focuses and preferences. Some of them would have been more focused on talking about the characters and the stories and, just enjoying that part of it. Or
I wish that John Locke would eat me like an orange.
Okay, all right. I mean, I'm more of a Daniel Day Kim fan, but to each their own.
We all are also his fan.
Well, okay, yeah. Another wiki, it might be more just focused on kind of like the actors, and hey, we're going to collate interviews and things they said, and others are going to be focused on like, what's this mystery, cracking this code, blah blah blah. But now that's not the case, right? If Lost came out today, it would just all be, each main kind of social site and space would have its one main, hey, this is the hashtag for Lost if you're on Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or whatever,
Right.
And those things are going to get shoved in your face too, because the algorithm and all this. And like, I hate the guy, and I saw that too. I don't know what that was.
Ghost orb. It was a bird feather. It was a bird feather.
Oh, okay.
It was back. It's audience. I own a parrot. Do you ever see ghost orb shit?
No, you're a pet. You're part bird. I know it.
I told you.
Take off your shirt, Tristan. Show us the feathers.
It's no feathers. Just my hairy ass chest.
So I hate the guy, right? Elon Musk, and I'm sure he's not the one that came up with this term, but he referred to Twitter as the town square of the internet.
Yeah, he did, and I kind of get it.
And the thing is,
it's not totally wrong.
It's not totally wrong, because the difference too back earlier, either during the internet or even pre-internet, right? If we talk pre-internet and you want to be a fan of stuff, you've literally got to attend conventions or talk to another human face to face.
Overrated.
Hey, there might be, the official fan club, that kind of thing. Like, you got to sign up and pay for a book that gets delivered like quarterly to you and stuff.
Well, newsletters kind of came back in a big way. Apparently, the big thing is newsletters now.
Yeah, Substacks, all that,
Not even Substacks. Like you sign your email up to a newsletter and get that.
Yeah.
I'm baffled. Like, why wouldn't you just go to a site?
But that's a lot more instantaneous than pre-internet. But
yeah, true.
The thing about him saying, Twitter is the town square is, and I think this is true of a lot of social spaces. So whether it's Twitter, whether it's TikTok, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, all these places, is that people are not having segmented conversations like they used to be, where if we think about
true
forums, if we think about fan sites, or even if we think about before that, people actually being there in person at conventions, right?
Yeah.
You had to go to a specific group having a specific chat topic, but that doesn't exist anymore. If I like Pokemon, and
you do,
I wouldn't necessarily call myself like an expert on Pokemon, but I would say
a pokehead, if you will.
I would say I know probably more than like the average fan, where they're going to be a little bit more casual. But kind of what ends up happening is, if I want to engage in almost anything Pokemon these days, we're just all crammed into the same room. So while I might be off here trying to read about or look up and study some sort of like, here's some like end game meta team comps, that's happening at the same time as some casual fans just being like, I don't even know what this term means, and I see people talking about, or like, hey, does anybody here like Gyarados? I really think Gyarados is cool. And I'm like, oh, okay, hey, that's an 8-year-old kid. I'm almost 30 years older than this person, and I've been into Pokemon for almost that same amount of time, so I'm not interested in that conversation. But we're kind of stuck in that same room.
Do tentacles have genitalia?
I mean, yes, but no, kid. Or to extend it out to something that I always find myself having to pause and not be harsh towards people when I see this. But like, I'm a big F1 fan. I have been a big F1 fan for a long time. And I'm sure, like most other sort of sports fans of that, we'll see people posit questions and ideas, or, post things and just be like, man, what's this picture of this car with 6 wheels? It's like, oh my God, it's the goddamn Brabham from the 70s. I've seen this 1,000 times.
It's so crazy.
Like, we all know what this is, but we don't, because there are people who it's like, hey, they got an F1 2 years ago. Of course, this is the first time they've ever seen it, and they think it's crazy.
It's kind of why I like being a WRC fan, a rally fan, is the fact that I don't get that, because all of our past cars just look like fucking crap.
You take that back. God damn it. The Lancia Stratos is one of the most beautiful cars ever.
That is a nice car. I agree.
I would throw fists.
I love these cars. But to everybody else, like, why are you driving this hatchback?
Okay, yeah,
there's a reason for it. Yeah. So I hear you. Like,
God damn it, Thierry Neuville! If you don't win this year, I am going to strangle you.
I think.
Do not bottle this.
Quick aside, I feel like Neuville has this year in the bag. I feel like he does.
I've been there before, Tristan.
I know you've been there before. You've been there like what, 7 years?
A long time. I've been into motorsport.
Yeah, I know.
But like that's the thing is, this extends out to everything like that, right? I'm sure you've seen it both as a new fan, but now somebody who's been into a couple of years of like, somebody will post something.
See it crazy.
Yeah, and or like not even message board. I'm sure you get it
on Twitter and shit
on
too,
Twitter and stuff, and you 100%. Just see somebody, you're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, okay, this person literally, this is their first year and they don't understand how this rule works. Of like, well, he shouldn't get a penalty for this. And you're like, yes, they should. Or like, well, why
is he getting penalties when they drive on the road?
Why couldn't they just repair the car? And it's like, because they're only allowed so many of each part. They can't just have an entirely spare car available. Like, and that's kind of, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because it removes some gatekeeping, right? It allows, hey, I'm a new fan. I can see these conversations happening. Even if I don't fully understand this topic, I still might be fascinated by it, or it still might help to further encourage me to get into this thing. But it also results in, hey, you have to hear conversations you might not be interested in. I mean,
yeah, quite.
It means like trying to avoid spoilers, and I gave up on that a long time ago.
Same.
But that's kind of impossible. Like you basically just have to not engage with the internet, because what's going to happen is, hey, episode of this show came out on Monday. It's like, yeah, like working overtime this week, and then got plans for this thing, and it's hey, got to record a podcast, and then okay, the next day, like hey, going out with to see family or whatever, and so it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to see this until Thursday, and there are people who are like, yeah, no, like we're 4 days in on having conversations about this thing, and.
So, yeah, I understand that a lot, because like, so a couple of the shows I watch this year, I specifically watch a lot of my cartoon stuff on Saturday morning. It just feels correct to me, even if it's more of an adult cartoon.
Sure.
But that does mean that I am far behind the conversations on quite a few of these shows with my friends. So if I'm in the room, they're like, oh, I guess I can't talk about that because you're here. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Well, one of the ones they want to talk about is like X-Men 97, which I'm watching and really enjoying. But like, you have to kind of not care about spoilers. And like me being a giant X-Men guy, I already kind of know this. Why would you hush up about this stuff on the room? Talk to me about it.
Yeah, but I think what you're getting at is, okay, before the internet, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking with somebody, and even today, right? When I'm talking to somebody about a thing, I'll usually go, oh, hey, like what roughly where are you? In case spoil, like, are you up to date? No, okay, what was the last event? Like, hey, maybe I don't know the episodes, they don't. Maybe it's not episodic, whatever it is. Or even say something like Dune. I saw Dune 2 in theaters, and then I have some other friends where one friend I know has read the books, so there's nothing I can spoil in talking about him. I could talk to him and say, like, oh my God, when they did this scene or this part, it's so good. Whereas other friends have not read the books, and okay, I know I don't want to spoil it. So, I can be careful on how I have those conversations.
Of course, yeah.
There was an era of the internet with forums where, forums, you literally flag it like, episode 22 conversation or, whatever. Whereas with a lot of modern social media, it's unavoidable, because if the algorithm in any way knows, because, hey, one time you liked a post about, let's say like Chainsaw Man, right? And let's say you're someone who's never read the manga or whatever. Hey, you liked one post about the anime. Well, now it's going to occasionally just randomly feed you, a new chapter of the manga dropped, and you just scroll and it's like, oh, cool, there's just a thing about the current chapter, or not even current chapter. Maybe it's like hey, this is 10 chapters ago, but it's still like 40 chapters ahead of where I am because I'm only watching the anime. It's like, great, hey, somebody did real cool fan art of this scene and that blew up and the algorithm decided to shove it in my face. And I think that element of it just in general, there's more negatives to positives to it, right?
Yeah.
That we're all stuck in the same room and everything is because of the way that algorithms and that work. It feels like it's just being shouted into your face rather than having an actual conversation at a, reasonable talking level. I am personally not a fan for it. I'll also say, we've talked about wikis. They're kind of good for specific kind of learnings, right? Going back to, hey, you want to get into comics, they're great for that. Or, hey, maybe you're just really into D&D, right? Or a variety of things, right? Wikis can be great for Monster Hunter. They're fantastic for that, of learning like, oh, you need this material. Well, that comes off of this monster. Or, oh, you don't get to unlock this until you complete this element, or this is how this mechanic works. These wikis can be great. There are certainly places where they're good for.
They're very useful, yes.
But aside from them, I think almost every other internet site that we have moved towards sucks. They're so much worse than forums and fan sites that came before them for learning conversations, like Twitter, Reddit, Discord, TikTok, Instagram, all those things. They're terrible. They're awful. I hate Discords for trying to learn about how to do a thing, because they're not very well cataloged, right? If you are not 100% invested in a thing, always there, it sucks. Because going to say something like, oh, hey, you know what? Somebody got into WRC at round 4. A fucking Discord is going to suck to try and go and like learn about, who are the drivers? Because people have had those conversations 4 months ago, and it doesn't index it. It doesn't create, the way that a forum would, where, hey, here's a literal headline, unless they created, a sub-channel or whatever, that, hey, here's a specific spot to learn about the drivers this season. It's awful. It sucks. I hate it. Whereas a forum, you could go back and look at it. It's like, here are the conversations people were having 4 months ago, and I can learn about this new driver. And here's people, posting clips from them when they were, in a lower category, or from this interview, or whatever it is. And that extends to almost every fandom. It's like, these things are really great if, it's Destiny 2 and that is the one game you play and you're in that Discord every day. Fantastic. It's great for you. For the rest of us, these things suck. I hate it. We have moved this way. It's awful.
Discord, like fan Discord stuff, I never really liked. There's something about this that just feels too.
And I should say, it's not just Discord, right? Discord is the one that a lot of stuff has moved to, of the literal video games going like, here's our official fan Discord to learn more.
Yeah, they do that.
But like Twitter, Reddit, all these things, they all suck, right? If you want to go back and try and learn about who the drivers are, none of them are good for trying to look at a snapshot from a specific time, or to just go off on a very detailed tangent on something.
This is true.
But the last topic I want to talk about is, and you touched on earlier, which is also that.
That's a lot of things.
And not that we've ever been great as a society and as fandoms in any of this, but I think
we are. Come on.
You don't even know what it is yet. But I do think things have gotten exacerbated, which is that the way that a lot of these sites work allow for people who are not experts or who are not necessarily the best people to be sharing and disseminating information to get that role. And I think in particular, things like Instagram or TikTok are much worse, where they are more YouTube as well. I should say YouTube is certainly up there. Twitch.
Oh yeah.
Where anytime it's podcasts, that somebody's personality can come through, that allows for somebody who is able to be more personal or more eloquent, more snippy, whatever it is, to be more engaging in the way that they talk. It makes it seem like, well, they must know about this because they sound authoritative, or, well, they're engaging in the way they talk without being accurate. And and look, this is certainly beyond just fandoms. We could talk politics, we could talk environment, we could talk whatever it is. Misinformation, a big problem, but it's definitely noticeable to me now that when people talk about being a fan of a thing, how often they just absorb misinformation and then take that as fact, and then it just spreads. And also, as part of this, it also ends up being this case that, and this could be a whole other separate tangent, but for example, Pokemon. There are people out there who think that like playing the Pokemon video games competitively is this big popular thing. Because,
really? Okay.
Because when they engage in these conversations, when they follow these, these kind of people, they'll see like, well, this person posted this video and it got, 50,000 views. It's like, yeah, that looks like a big number. These games sell 20 goddamn million copies. Like, this is, like the competitive player base is 1% of the game, somewhere's around that. Maybe it's 5% or whatever, but it's tiny. And I think that happens too with this misinformation stuff, is that people kind of go like, well, this represents the fan base as a whole. Ergo, if this is what we feel, or if this is our interpretation, this is what everybody thinks, and they all agree with us as well. And I think that sort of echo chamber effect also causes problems with that misinformation, that you have somebody who they say something or they get treated like an authority and it looks like they have a really big number, but that in the grand scale of it, it's like, no, this person is talking to this tiny fraction of the audience, and the rest of it is off, not necessarily caring about this or not paying attention to this person.
Okay. So what you mentioned right there is what has happened and is happening a lot in the fitness industry. The good news on
except for Liver King, he's actually an expert. You can trust him.
Oh boy, I was just going to mention Liver King actually, and
okay.
and V Shred and guys like that.
Oh god, V Shred, get out of here.
Fuck. Anyway. So yeah, I know a lot about like the fitness industry. I lift weights. Brody even lived. Yeah, I do. Basically, there's a lot of misinformation on that side of things. It's very easy to trick people into thinking that you know the answers, because if you look good, you were likely to know how to get a 6-pack abs if you have a 6-pack abs. Sure, makes sense. But you got to be careful what people are telling you. So, a lot of the good stuff that comes out of that industry, though, is that fitness, like the scientific nutritionist and fitness industry studies are actually posted, for the most part, for free. So, if you want to read about how to actually scientifically get into shape, you can definitely... That is a way. Steroids are not illegal. I'm going to point that out. They just seem illegal because
the kind I do are.
Nice.
You have to harvest them from humans. So
yeah, okay, that's pretty illegal. But
very
steroids
expensive.
steroids are typically not illegal. It's just we think they are because of all the industries that do ban them in sports leagues and that kind of stuff. So you can do steroids and get in better shape if you really want to. That's one of the things you can do. But a lot of people will advocate for things that are not steroids because steroids still have that stigma. So people don't want to hear, oh, this person does steroids and that's how they got that body. What they want to hear is, I do this crazy thing, eat raw liver, and that got me this crazy primal body kind of thing. And no, it was steroids. Every time it's fucking steroids.
But the thing is that, it's not just, he has the body, but it's, he's got the personality to go with it. Ergo, he must be right. Right? Whereas, hey, if that dude just had to, write, if he just had to type out the things that he thinks, or if he had to just type out his instructions, I mean, I cannot imagine he'd be even a fraction as popular as he is because...
No, not at all.
I think text, it's not impossible. There is a lot of, text-based misinformation, certainly.
A lot, yes.
But I do think that sort of on-camera personality allows for
it becomes very
the wrong
easy.
Kind of people to far more easily get propped up as experts.
It gets very easy when the camera is on. You sometimes lose control of yourself. This is true, and you can start to just kind of play to the camera, play to the audience, instead of saying the thing that is actually true. I have caught myself doing that multiple times, even on our show, even just before we were doing on camera stuff. I'm going yeah, it's this, and it's it's actually not. I should probably correct that, or whatever. So when you have these forums in the fitness industry, specifically in this case, that are dedicated to kind of fighting off misinformation, I think you need a lot more of that. But the thing is, not many people know about that stuff. But you do kind of need people who are like, hey, V-Shred's full of shit. Hey, Liver King's full of shit. Greg Doucette's trying to sell you some fucking bullshit pills. Don't take those. All this stuff, you need people who are out there educating as well as trying to direct people to the correct information. And it gets hard in stuff like sports and in WRC or fitness or whatever, because there's a lot more opinion out there. There's a lot of scientific evidence, but even the scientific evidence says hey, this may not work as intended depending on your body, or this may not work. This driver may not be who you're looking for, depending on what kind of a style of driver you like, or that kind of thing. But when it gets easier to fall into those holes is with fandoms in terms of media. Very easy to jump into those traps.
Yeah, and that that was the last topic, but just kind of to wrap it up.
Yeah,
a lot of negative, some positive we talked about. The reality is, we are where we are, right? Nothing is going to all of a sudden just stop wikis from existing. Nothing's going to all of a sudden stop Discord. The U.S. government might stop TikTok from existing. We'll see.
EMP, maybe?
Well, okay, sure, nuclear winter.
We exploded a nuclear weapon above.
Mad Max is my dream scenario, so I'm happy if that happens. But, I think we're stuck in the world that we are in.
Sadly enough.
I think kind of just what I would like to see is just fans and fandoms in general just kind of moving towards I guess overall what you would just call it is kind of like media literacy or just literacy in general, right? And just kind of learning, you know, hey,
I get you.
It's okay to not take some of this stuff as seriously as some people do, right? Kind of going back to that, like having to go on wikis and read all this information and know all these facts about, you know, our characters, who their parents were. It's like, that is so irrelevant to this story.
Typically, yes.
You know, and it's hard, right? Because, hey, you know, again, in a lot of ways, some of these fandoms are not representative of a very large percent of the fans and the populace, right?
Not usually.
Most people aren't spending their time online arguing about nonsense of a thing they like. They're just, you know, at home watching TV like normal people.
But Hassan, if I don't tell you which fake Grand Order character is my favorite, I can't exist properly. I need to tell you...
Which one's Grand Order? Is that like the
just
gotcha game or something?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Anime? I have no idea. I know it's popular.
Yeah,
I just cannot remember which one that is.
I just chose out of the air. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm just trying to say is let's just be nice to each other and stop being like idiots.
That's nice. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, talk to people. Maybe discuss things more than just
as the internet says, go touch some grass.
Touch some fucking grass, you loser. And man, that's the bad way to say that. Yeah, basically, you know, talk to people, log off. I have actually fixed this problem for myself for quite a bit by just not going on Twitter and Facebook and places like that. I just have fully abandoned most of social media, with the exception of some certain like segments of Reddit. That's like it, and it's very specific. Maybe a little.
It's
horny.
Pornography. No, I've got it.
I was gonna get there. You gotta beat me to it. Very specific spots on Reddit that like are usually for either D&D or something like that, or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's curated though, as opposed to the massive stuff that just comes down through the pipeline of any regular old asshole can be like, hey, I hate this driver in the WRC because he does this. And it's like, well, they all actually do that because of this reason.
No, it's the guy I don't like. My driver would never cut a corner.
Oh. Fuck. I've seen this conversation too often. Anyway.
Yeah. What?
Point is, talk to people. Come to it as in a very calm way. And understand that some people just don't know what they're talking about. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And if someone pisses you off on the internet, just walk away.
Why don't you tell people where to find us?
No, I will not.
Okay.
Twitter, I just said don't go on Twitter, and I just... I feel like I'm such a hypocrite now by saying go to our Twitter, which is at half an hour, and hang out with us there. I mean, I need to update that more. I work work long hours, and it's hard for me to sometimes do the updates. You're lucky you get the show in the format that it is. So, yeah. Anyway, go to our Twitter and do stuff. Go to our Spotify and iTunes. Go to those places. Listen to the podcast. It's the audio version, if you wish. You can also go to our YouTube page, which is basically the place where you find this video version that you are watching right now, if you are the one watching it. While you're here, click a bunch of buttons somewhere. Maybe click on... Ooh. That video looks pretty good. Click on that video. It's not one of ours. I'm pointing at your feed.
It's going to be Liver King.
It's going to be Liver King. It's the V-Shred video. Liver King videos be like, yeah, subprimal. I hate that guy. Anyway. I was pointing right to a Joe Rogan episode or something. Go right there, yeah.
No.
Hassan, point to your left, just to so they know where to go.
My left? Here?
Yeah.
Right here?
There you go, yes.
Yeah, click on that.
Click on that. Whatever it is. I don't even care.
Pokemon.
Just click on it. God, I hope it's weird. I hope it's weird. Anyway. Go to our friends there's DJTang.com. That's a good place you can go that's not going to give you any weirdness except for his music, which, you know, gets kind of wild and rowdy sometimes, because that's just how musicians is. Go there, listen to his great tunes, and, I don't know, maybe toss him to the internet wolves?
Yeah.
That's all I got. Anyway, that's it for our show. Tune in next time for another evil episode of Everything's Ruined. See ya.
See ya.